Here on Fitz's recruiting update, we talk about what Fitz has to talk about in his recruiting update. I'm going to define the thing by talking about the title. So you, as we mentioned, went to New Jersey to check out Under Armour camp in New Jersey. And of course, we have more recruiting news just generally coming up for this week. So that's what we're covering here in your recruiting update as far as I'm concerned. Or no, I know. Of course, it's yours. You can take us wherever you want, but where do you want to start? Do you want to start in New Jersey? Do you want to start with what's coming up?
We'll start in New Jersey. Why not? That's where my weekend was, or my Saturday was spent. Good time in Ramsey, New Jersey, at Ramsey High School, not at Don Bosco, but got a chance to see some of the region's top players. 4 Penn State commits were on hand. Some other guys that we talked to that, Penn State's in pretty solid position with as well heading into the summer. But good camp as always. Under Armour does a good job of getting that. They've got Baltimore this weekend. I'm not sure how that one's going to work out because everybody's going to be on their official visits. Yeah, it's on Sunday, but that's the story for another day. But as you see here, we've got plenty of video coming from, especially from offensive line, defensive line one-on-ones. I thought it was a good group of offensive linemen. Maxwell Hiller was my top guy. Carter Scruggs won the MVP, which he had a good performance as well. Don't get me wrong, but Maxwell Hiller, he's very good, and you can see him here playing right tackle. I think he's probably a guard at the next level, but also one of those guys where if you put him at any of the 5 positions, I think he could excel. 2027 from Coatesville. Has been into Penn State a ton of times, has camped with Phil Troutwine, was very high on Penn State, and he's going to be back at some point. But it's just a matter of him getting out to see other schools. He did that this winter, this spring, saw Alabama. He's going to go out to Oregon. He's going to go to Florida. He's going to go to a bunch of places this summer, which is actually, it's kind of an interesting summer on tap here, because usually what would happen is you get all of June to go out and camp and to see these places, to take on officials in the case of 2027 and Maxwell Hiller. But you also have late July where Penn State usually would have its Lash Bash, which bringing in a couple of camps and getting some big days. Last year was back-to-back Lash Bash days. So very, very talented. That's all gone now. So you've only got 3 weeks basically to go out and check these places out this summer, which I think is going to be good for people in terms of what they bring to the table, in terms of like seeing schools that you actually want to see, as opposed to visiting 19 schools in a summer, which is a bit overkill. But they have an opportunity to get back to these schools that I think you see that they're actually interested in. And to further that calendar discussion this offseason, as we're playing, by the way, this is the final 5 that's been playing on YouTube, the offensive line, defensive line, but that calendar discussion sees coaches go on the road in January and now in the spring evaluation period, but actually recruit. So it's no longer just like, hey, we'll see you in the hallway, wink, wink, and then, go to talk to them for 30 minutes and then don't tell anybody you talk to them. But what you see now is more relationship building, more of that stuff that makes guys more ready for their decision. And I think it's a reason that Penn State has 17 commits in the class of 2026 right now, is like a lot of those guys felt comfortable enough to do so without taking official visits. But we've strayed away from New Jersey. I apologize for that. 4 Penn State commits on hand. Messiah Mickens was there with running backs, linebackers. Hey, man, I'm sorry. This is a very tough situation for those to stand out, because it's basically like, hey, you go do the one-on-ones as if you're receivers and D-backs, but you're not receivers and D-backs. But Messiah Mickens still looked pretty good. Was encouraged by his makeup, his quickness in the open field, did some really good things. Thought he was going to win MVP, but he did not. But that's kind of a theme with the camps I've seen this year, is the guys that really stand out and should have won MVP. Maybe they haven't been there, but Mickens is there. He's still locked into Penn State visit this weekend. We'll see what happens in the rest of June, but I think he'll be pretty solid with Penn State. Isaac Chikwara was the second weekend in a row that we saw him. He was at the Elite 11. Same with Layton Vaughn Brandt, who was at the Elite 11 last weekend. They were both in New Jersey. Good, solid performances there. It was my first time seeing Chikwara sort of, as he pops up on the screen against Layton Vaughn Brandt, in person at length. Last week when he was at Elite 11, he wasn't on the roster. We weren't looking for him. I also showed up as they were wrapping up. So good weekend for both of those guys. Good reps right there for Chikwara and Vaughn Brandt. And it was a good time watching those Delaware guys shine. I think Penn State has found something in Delaware in those two guys, in addition to Jasir Rogers, who's there. And then Roseby Lubintus came. He was a little bit late. Got up there, worked out at tackle and guard. Had a bit of a rough go of it. Had a couple of good reps, like the one you just saw right there. I think it was a good opportunity for him to sort of see this come together. it was tough at times because he's not used to this situation. He's fairly young in terms of playing football, fairly raw. But he's a big body. He's got some feet that can move. It's just a matter of connecting the brain to the feet and everything like. You see Stanley Montgomery from Archbishop Ryan in Philly got by him pretty easily right there. YD Collier, who you see on the screen right now if you're on YouTube, the defensive line MVP, thought he had a great day. He's a Rutgers commit, was a Penn State target. I still think he's a Penn State target, even though there's a ton of names on that edge board, so it could go any which way. That's probably more of a later in the cycle kind of conversation there. So good weekend with the O-line. D-line there, quarterback Peter Bork, class of 2027. From New England, he was really good. He's Penn State's top target on the quarterback board in the next cycle. Was very impressed with him throwing the football. Receiver group was just okay. A bunch of drops for him, but
yeah.
The part. It was funny because I was going through the videos that I sent to T Frank to piece together, and there's a lot of incompletions, not necessarily bad throws, but a lot of incompletions.
Couple for the highlight reel that you put out on social media, but then a couple where the receiver gets totally chucked by the DB and isn't anywhere near where he's supposed to be on the pass. So it makes the quarterback look like he's not thrown to the right spot, even though if you're paying attention, the quarterback did his job. Don't know the receiver very well, right? So there's that part.
It's just basically, hey, go draw up a Coke cap, and you go run the route there in the backyard. No, it was funny because I was standing up there filming, and every throw was like the coach was like, "Good ball, Pete," and it could have not been near him, but it was where the ball was supposed to be. So encouraged by that. He's going to get out and see a bunch of schools this summer, and I'm really curious to see what that final schedule ends up being. But Penn State's going to be on that list. I think Penn State, if not the top school, one of the top schools on Peter Bork's list, and he would be a pretty good fit. Reminded me a lot of Ethan Grunkmeyer, to be honest with you, with his ability to sort of cut loose and be accurate at the same time. He's an athletic guy. He's a lacrosse player. He's dealing with bum ankle right now, but you could see the athleticism come through. I thought he was the top quarterback there. Keegan Croucher, also from New England, class of 2027, won the MVP, but I thought Bork had the best day.
Yeah, just to follow up on something you said about Messiah Mickens, one of the feature stories right now, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, from Chad Simmons, where he got some quotes from the guys that were at that Under Armour, New Jersey camp. I'll just read you one brief one. But again, if you want to subscribe, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, read the whole thing. Just $1 for the first week, and then you can decide if you want to join us for a full year. But I'm going to give you this quote here that Chad Simmons got from Messiah Mickens. The culture under him is different. Every player wants to play under him. You don't see many guys at Penn State going into the transfer portal. It's a different place to be. He also said it's a place on the rise. I'm trying to find the exact quote. The program is on its way to a national championship. It's pretty good. Like I know there's been Messiah Mickens has had interest from Notre Dame, obviously with Jaywan Sider and all those things. Hard to see him deciding to go somewhere else when he's talking about the team's on its way to a national championship. Again, if you want to read more of those quotes, Roseby Lubintus, Chikora, all those players, Layton, Vaughn, Brandt, had something to say about Penn State there from Chad Simmons. So you can check that out. That's our article right now as we're talking over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com in the top spot. We've got anything else from Under Armour? I mean, as far as other players that stood out to you, were there underclassmen? We talked a lot about the Penn State commits. Some of the guys that I thought looked pretty good. There was Jackson Vaughn, 2028 defensive end. I know we've had an eye on him since he was at camp last year at Penn State as a guy who stood out as I think an eighth grader at that point. How did you feel he did? And were there any other underclassmen that you thought performed well and stood out?
Yeah, there were a bunch of underclassmen. It's in my recap, which I posted on Saturday. Definitely check that out on the site. I don't have it open in front of me, but it was a good camp for underclassmen. A lot of these 2026s or current cycle guys kind of fading out from that camp scene. So it was a good bit of underclass guys, and definitely check out the recap because I can't name them all right now, and I don't want to leave anybody out.
That's all right. I was watching on the video this morning, so it was all fresh in my head, which is the reason I had Jackson Vaughn's name at the tip of my tongue, as opposed to you who did it and then I went fishing for the weekend. So official visits coming up this weekend. I know that's another big thing for the recruiting calendar. I never know how to view this particular weekend, Fitz, because it's a big weekend in terms of the number of players here. They're committed players. So if Penn State fans are expecting a huge rush of commitments from this particular weekend. I always kind of gloss over this one because you had your Joey O'Briens last week. You have some more of your big prospects and players coming up later in the summer towards the end, so you can leave that last good taste in the mouth of a prospect who wants to make a decision. And now you've got this particular weekend. So how do you view this weekend? And then what are you looking for in terms of impact from this official visit weekend?
Yeah, I mean, you look at what Penn State likes to do, and they've kind of played around with this the last couple of cycles to figure out when the best weekend is to bring in all those guys, and when the best weekend is to bring in the guys that your uncommitted targets. And they've moved this one up. So this used to be, I think, the third weekend that they would host all the commitments and things like that. Now they've moved it up, and it's kind of the second weekend, but it's also kind of the first weekend because you had the Memorial Day dead period. So no official visitors last weekend. So this is kind of like your last rush. So you've got camp season opening up this weekend. You've got just June in general. Like, I know it's May 31st and May 30th weekend, but it's June in general. So you wanted to bring those guys in because you can bring them back, not bring them back themselves, but bring them back the last weekend of June, and you get an unofficial out of it there. So now you're setting yourself up to get all these guys together. Smooth. Ooh, that's a terrible word to mess up. Smooth over any sort of cracks that you may have with other schools coming after them, and then bring them back at the end of June and reassure them and get them ready for their season. Because as we mentioned before, that July window is no longer open, so you don't have the long layoff, and then guys might pop up at the end at other schools in the end of July. So you're just kind of setting yourself up, I think, for success. I think the way to do it. So they're going to bring everybody in this weekend, with the exception of Terry Wiggins. He's going to come in a couple of weeks. And then there's only a handful of uncommitted guys that are going to be in this weekend. And it's more about fitting the schedule for those guys than anything. Yes, you can talk about, well, get them around the commits and make them feel at home and things like that. And there's an element to that, but I don't think that's really the case, because you've got a couple of offensive linemen coming in, a couple of linebackers coming in. So it's not really a peer recruiting weekend in a sense of we want you to join our team. It's more about, hey, this family, this community, this fellowship that we've all got together, this is kind of on display. So it's not about, and this is a question we had in the chat on Friday, which, by the way, the chat was fantastic this weekend. I do recommend you check that out at bluewhiteillustrated.com. But you have an opportunity. It's not so much of a hard sell for these uncommitted guys with the committed guys on campus. That's not why you set that weekend up like you set it up. It's more about just getting everyone together, making everyone feel sort of at home, and then coming back around in June, at the end of June, and going with that.
Yeah, it's a show, not a tell, for guys that are uncommitted there to show what, all of it looks like with all those committed players being a part of the program. We'll talk, as Fitz said, more about this on Thursday on the live show when we preview the official visit weekend, and of course all the other news and notes that happened between now and then, with Ryan Snyder, our recruiting reporter, joining us as well. But of course, if you're watching this, like the video. Always appreciate your help and support here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. Just a friendly reminder, subscribe. Super easy. It's free. If you want to be a Penn State football fan and show your support for the Nittany Lions, one of the ways is to interact with all the things going on in the offseason and to stay up to date. We've got you covered here with Blue White Illustrated.